Good evening, my name is Raul Mascanosa and welcome to this first program of Más con Más, a program designed to inform you, the public, as to what is going on not just in the political world, but also what's going on in the business world, what's going on in Wall Street, what's going on behind the scenes in a lot of these stories that you're hearing. And we're going to do that in a variety of different ways. We're going to basically take a look at the headlines of the day. We'll talk about what's going on in the world. I'll give you my perspective, which is probably a little bit different from most of what you'll see out there from traditional newscasters. My background really is not as a professional news person. I am not a journalist by trade. I spent most of my life in the banking business, working all over the world, in Asia and Latin America, as a businessman, as a banker, as a wealth management advisor, advising very wealthy families on their investments, and working with corporations and big institutions and helping them manage their money as well. So I've got a broad range of worldview, if you will, an incredible Rolodex of individuals that I've had the opportunity to meet over the years, and also grew up here in South Florida, know this community extraordinarily well, know most of the political figures here in town, know a lot about what's going on in our own community, the people behind the scenes, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk as well and get their views on what's happening, not just on the national stage, but here locally as well in South Florida. We're going to be exploring that with you. We'll look forward to getting your feedback as this program begins to get its legs together, to see what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see more of. Towards the end of this program, I'll give you information on how to get a hold of us to give us that sort of feedback for our programming. But in the meantime, look forward to giving you my views on what's going on in the world. There's obviously an awful lot to talk about. These last few weeks, I think it's safe to say, the world has turned upside down. So it's a particularly good time to, quite frankly, be talking about what's going on in the world, because there's an awful lot to talk about. Let's start with the pandemic itself. I mean, we all know by now that this is not something that started in the US. This is a disease that started in China, in Wuhan province. And where exactly did the disease come from? Apparently, from what I understand, this disease began in what they call the live markets of Wuhan. The live markets are basically slaughterhouses in these cities in China where Chinese people who are enjoy what in Africa they call bushmeat, monkeys, snakes, exotic animals, are basically sold in these live markets of Wuhan for people that like to make dishes, using these exotic foods. The problem with that is that it's an unnatural environment. You have in these so-called live markets monkeys from Africa, snakes from Latin America, animals from Africa, all in cages side by side with each other, with all sorts of different viruses that they're carrying, diseases that they're carrying, and the ability to transmit those diseases not just from one animal to another, but from animals to humans. And that apparently is where the coronavirus came from. Supposedly, it came from a bat that was basically slaughtered to be used as a meal in a dinner. And that virus spread from that bat to patient number 1, which apparently was back in November in China. Now, we didn't start to hear about what was happening really until the very end of December or early January, when we began to get reports that there was a new flu taking hold in China. But that flu, as it turns out, is much more contagious than any flu we've ever seen. And it's led now to this global pandemic that we're experiencing. The latest figures that I've seen as of today is that we now have over 1 million cases of coronavirus worldwide. Approximately a quarter of those cases are here in the US. 250,000 people diagnosed with the coronavirus in the US, the bulk of those being in the New York metropolitan area. We've already seen 6,000 deaths here in the US, and those numbers unfortunately are likely to climb in the days and weeks ahead. It's taking a tremendous toll on our economy. We've seen the Dow Jones Industrial Market that was up almost at 30,000 points in early February. Around February 12th, I think it reached its peak of around 29,500 points. Basically cratered, dropped to below 19,000 points, 18,800 points, and now it's bounced back to around 21 or 22,000. Incredible damage to the stock markets, to our 401k accounts, to our savings in this country, and obviously the huge loss in employment. We've got 10 million people that are now unemployed in the United States as a result of this pandemic. We're going to be talking about all of these issues. We've got a great lineup of guests that we'll be interviewing as we go along, and I look forward to engaging with you, hearing about what you want to talk about, and hopefully having a very interesting conversation here on Más con Más. Thank you for joining me.
Atención, atención. Importantes avances científicos en estudios de la genética han demostrado que el cuerpo humano está diseñado para sobrevivir, pero que enfermamos y envejecemos a nivel celular por causa de los telómeros. Se ha comprobado que todas las enfermedades que padecemos o las que podríamos padecer se originan en nuestras células y están directamente relacionadas con telómeros dañados. En nuestros laboratorios hemos creado un producto de excelencia, Biogénesis, el reparador de ADN.
Cuando me recomendaron Biogénesis, puse todas mis esperanzas en este tratamiento y me ha ido muy bien. Estoy feliz. Gracias a Biogénesis pude ponerle fin a tantos años de estrés y sufrimiento.
Biogénesis realmente me ha cambiado la vida.
Ponga un stop a las enfermedades con Biogénesis. Este avanzado y revolucionario tratamiento es 100% natural. Regenera los telómeros, haciendo que tus células se multipliquen totalmente sanas y libres de enfermedades. Si usted sufre de diabetes, hipertensión, baja potencia sexual, libérese del estrés. Viva una vida feliz y saludable. Llame ya y ordene Biogénesis, el único tratamiento que lo va a ayudar a reemplazar las células dañadas de todo su organismo por células totalmente sanas. Pero espere, si llama ya, le duplicaremos su orden totalmente gratis. Si está dentro de los primeros 50 llamados, recibirá un frasco adicional totalmente gratis. Sí, 3 frascos al precio de 1. No deje que las enfermedades acaben con su salud. ¡Llame ya!
Los mejores precios en vinos y carnes, y tenemos una gran variedad de carnes exóticas. A las personas que nos visitan en la bodeguita Mian Market les tenemos una sorpresa, un truco de magia. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están?
Hola, ¿cómo está usted?
Bienvenido. Vamos a hacer algo sencillito que mira, te voy a mostrar que tengo cartas diferentes. Vas a tomar una, la que tú quieras. 7 de trébol, ¿no? Muéstrala y muestra a la cámara, por favor. 7 de trébol, 7. ¿Recuerdas tu carta? ¿Recuerdas tu nombre?
Sí.
Ok, vamos a hacerlo así. Mira, voy a tomar aquí el 7, ahí lo ves, y lo voy a doblar. Pero, como eres mi asistente, vas a ponerlo aquí, pon el dedo ahí. Es mi asistente ahora, ¿ok? Y ahora te voy a poner un poquito más difícil. Voy a tomar para mí el 6. Muéstralo ahí. Ahí lo ven, el 6 de espada, ¿ok? Le voy a poner mi nombre, le voy a poner aquí Enigma. Mira lo que vamos a hacer, voy a tomar mi carta, el 6, ¿ok? Voy a hacer esto. ¿Me prestas una mano, por favor? Mira conmigo. Ahí está. Ábrela y muéstrala. Increíble, ha pasado, ¿no? En la bodeguita Mía Market de Miami Lane también hacemos magia con los precios de la carne.
Hola, soy Norlene. Welcome to a place where we produce the best coffee, Café La Rica. En Ciela Roasters hacemos el mejor café, el café oficial de los Miami Marlins, my team. Somos una gran familia y lo único que queremos es que todos prueben nuestro café, Café La Rica.
Familia, no hay nada como recomendar a los amigos un lugar para compartir en familia. Di Crespo Steakhouse, en el corazón de Kendall. Comiendo como en casa, la comida que tú te mereces. Y por supuesto, las mejores carnes. Carnes premium. La dirección es fácil. 13772 Southwest 152 Street. En el corazón de Kendall, al lado de Country World.
The U.S. job market continues to take a steep toll. We lost 6.6 million jobs in the week ending March 28th. In the week prior to that, the week ending March 21st, we saw the loss of 3.3 million jobs. Combine those two and we're now looking at an unemployment of basically 10 million people out of work in the United States. This morning, Friday morning, we saw the latest unemployment numbers, the unemployment rate as produced by the economic indicators, showing that the unemployment rate, which had originally been at 3.5%, is now at 4.4%, with a loss of 701,000 jobs during the first 2 weeks of March. The investment firm of Goldman Sachs, which had earlier in the week predicted an unemployment rate of 9%, has now adjusted that number up to 15%. And they're looking at a contraction in U.S. GDP in the second quarter of approximately 34%. Here to talk to us about what's going on in the financial markets and the U.S. economy is Miguel Sosa. Miguel Sosa is the founding partner of Premia Global Advisors located in Coral Gables. He spent 33 years working with the firm of Merrill Lynch, and he now joins us from Coral Gables to talk to us about his views on what's happening in the markets and in the economy in general. Miguel, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Raul. Thank you for having me.
Miguel, we've seen this incredible sort of decline in the last couple of weeks, unemployment going up week after week, in addition to sort of the bad news about what's going on with the pandemic and the awful toll of people dying in hospitals and whatnot. But you mentioned something in a newsletter that you put out that basically we're beginning to see sort of an end to the uncertainty that's kind of characterized the last couple of weeks. What do you mean by that? Are we beginning to see some information that has kind of given us a clue as to where the bottom might actually be?
Well, throughout the years of my experience, I feel that this situation has about 4 phases. The first phase we were in was basically a panic phase, and that phase was a result of just having no information. We were faced with a terrible unknown, which frankly we're still faced with, but we didn't have enough information. And as I stated in my newsletter, in light of having no information, fear takes us to the extreme. So that's where we saw the markets behave the way they did for the most part, the majority of March. I think as of about a week ago, when we had the first unemployment number, or the jobless claims number rather, we entered a phase 2. That phase 2 is now a phase that tries to balance the information that we're getting relative to where the markets are. So the markets have discounted an enormous amount of bad news. Now we need to see what that bad news looks like. So as that bad news shows up, the data will be compared to it and the markets will digest it and react to it. Oddly enough, a $3 million unemployment number, or jobless claims number last week caused the market to go up. So that should tell you that the market is discounted probably a bigger number at this point in time. Phase three is really where the market becomes a little bit unnerved about the fact that things are just not going to get any better anytime soon. And even good news at that point doesn't really calm the markets. And then finally, we enter what I call phase four, which is really the uptrend where people become more convinced that things are getting better and the data starts to show it.
Miguel, we're seeing some of these numbers come in, but for example, a lot of these unemployment numbers that we're looking at don't necessarily reflect all the damage that's been caused out there. For example, I don't think these numbers are basically picking up a lot of the people that are working in the gig economy, that are self-employed. Those individuals are not necessarily being captured by these numbers that we're seeing reflected by basically people being laid off from their corporate jobs or working for big employers. Do you have any idea what that might add to these numbers in terms of how big is that segment of the population, the self-employed, the gig economy, how big has it become in recent years in our economy?
Well, I don't actually have a good sense of how big it is, but it is very, very big. And I think that looking at it from the more of a future look, I think that gig economy is going to grow even more. I think it's going to get bigger. I think that there are some habit changes and some ways of life that are changing as a result of what we're going through. And I see that gig economy growing more. I think people working at home will grow. I think that'll be one of the results of this pandemic and the situation we're in, along with many other things. So I do believe that the way of life we've had is going to be changing in ways that some may be a little clearer now, but in many ways we don't even know.
Sure. Look, I think the whole corporate landscape is changing, right? I mean, we're seeing certain companies that are still operating and in fact are increasing their sales. Obviously, Amazon's having a banner year with people not being able to go to stores and having to shop online constantly. Netflix is probably doing real well. But there's other industries that, quite frankly, are going to take it on the chin even more than they've taken it already. And specifically, I think of the cruise line industry. That particular industry is suffering enormously, and I think it might be a long time before people start getting back on cruise ships. What kind of industries do you see benefiting from this, Miguel, and what kind of industries do you think might take much longer to sort of recuperate?
Yeah, so one of the things that we have been doing at Premia to make sure that we're properly positioned and that we're actually looking towards the future is trying to identify exactly that, those changes that we believe are going to be short-term and what changes are much more like a mega trend, something that will be lasting for decades into the future. So one clear area for us on a near-term basis is healthcare. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Right now, the vulnerability of the healthcare sector is so clear, and the need for the replacement of all these supplies, equipment, medicines, and all the personal emergency procedures or items that people need, that's going to cause the healthcare industry and sectors within healthcare equipment, I think, are very important. So healthcare for sure in all its dimensions is going to be a place that we believe is going to have a long-lasting effect from this pandemic. And then technology for sure. I mean, getting back to your original question about the gig economy, people are going to like working from home. People won't. Some people will. But I think the fact that companies are now seeing that it's a viable alternative to the way they work, that's going to change a lot of the dynamics of how people commute, people work, how live, the needs. Getting back to the cruise ship industry, I think what we'll see is a morphing of industries. I think industries will change. I think I don't want to ever underestimate the creativity of corporate America. I think corporate America has the ability to find ways out of situations. And I think whether it's a cruise industry, the airline industry, the whatever industry, I think it's going to find a different path as a result of what we're going through.
Let me ask you one last question regarding sort of the macro picture. For most of our lifetimes, we've been seeing the whole globalization of commerce, right? I mean, Major U.S. corporations are really now multinational corporations with operations all over the world. Supply chains have become global. And obviously one of Donald Trump's principal aims in coming into the White House was his whole, let's make America great again, let's focus on the U.S. first, and to a certain extent doing away with a lot of that globalization, or at least calling it into question. I think it's pretty safe to say that a lot of people are asking themselves that same question, or beginning to realize that we need to sort of re-examine this whole global links that we have, particularly when it comes to critical industries like health, pharmaceuticals, national security related industries. To what extent do you think that this global pandemic will alter at a macro level the way we deal with the rest of the world?
I think pandemic is going to cause a enormous amount of reflection by every single company that depends on whether it's services or products or goods that are manufactured outside of the boundaries of our country. And I think that that's going to be one of the biggest changes that will come as a result of this. I think the dependence that we have had and we continue to have has shown a high degree of vulnerability and of undependability. And I think that as a nation, we're going to create an enormous amount of pride for American-made goods in the near future. And I think we as a country will galvanize around all the industries and businesses and services that we have in this country, A, because we need to do so in order to recover from it, and B, because it's going to be in our long-term best interest to be able to control our destinies more than we have recently.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, Miguel. And by the way, if somebody wants to contact Premier Global Advisors, how can they get a hold of you?
The best way to contact us is www.premia, P-R-E-M-I-A, globaladvisors, plural.com. Great website, and we'd be happy to discuss this and any other matters with you.
Terrific. And thank you again, Miguel, for taking time out and joining us this evening.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Espérate un momentico, bebé, déjala pan. Quería invitarlos a que vinieran aquí a Mr. Arepa, que queda ubicado en la 16733 Northwest 67 Avenida, donde se comen las mejores arepas, así que usted olvídese de la popusa y de todo lo demás. Venga aquí a Mr. Arepa, que tienen las mejores arepas venezolanas, y a mí como colombiana sí que me encanta la arepa, bebé. Ya saben, vengan a comer arepa conmigo, con esta arepa que está deliciosa, mis amores. Esto queda ubicado en Miami Lakes.
Familia, no hay nada como recomendar a los amigos un lugar para compartir en familia. Di Crespo Steakhouse, en el corazón de Kendall. Comiendo como en casa, la comida que tú te mereces. Y por supuesto, las mejores carnes. Carnes premium. La dirección es fácil. 13772 Southwest 152 Street. En el corazón de Kendall, al lado de Country World.
Secretary of Treasury Bob Mnuchin has assured Americans that over the next 2 weeks, every individual American will receive a check for $1,200 deposited directly into your bank account. and some additional sums for your children as well. That, of course, presupposes that you have direct deposit accounts with the IRS set up through one of these services that's very popular to do your tax returns or whatever. Obviously, there's a lot of Americans that do not have those. And for those Americans that do not have that direct deposit capability, the Department of the Treasury is going to basically be setting up a web portal where you'll be able to go in and input the information as to where to deposit that information or how to get a check to you eventually. The government is basically encouraging everybody to try and do this through direct deposits because the Treasury only has a limited capability in terms of the number of checks that they can send out every day, and it's a lot more expeditious process if you have the ability to deposit the checks directly into your accounts. So these stimulus checks will hopefully arrive in our bank accounts in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but it doesn't do a whole lot of people that have small businesses with employees and that need, quite frankly, a lot more than $1,200 in their bank accounts. In order to explain to us what's going on with these different programs to help the small businessmen, I've invited David Max Hernandez, a CPA here in Doral, Florida, who has a firm called Max Financial and has been looking into all of these plans and will explain to us exactly what is going on. David, thank you for being with us tonight and being on this inaugural program of Más con Más. So maybe down the road we'll have Más con Max. Okay? So thank you for being on the program. And can you tell us, David, what's your perception of what's going on in terms of these programs? Do you think it's enough? Do you think that this will really help small business people?
Basically, the first thing that we have to understand, and this is a massive program like it's never been seen in the United States of America. It's a massive program. They're beginning, I mean, if you take a look at the whole COVID Act, which is called CARES in response to the COVID virus, what's happening is that the Senate and then the Congress and the President, they have put together a bill of 880 pages that basically touch on every major important avenue of the economy, every industry. And basically my focus, it's always been helping students, helping families, self-employed, sole proprietorships, small businesses, and then sometimes middle-sized businesses that need consulting. And of course, we're really worried about the state of affairs when it comes to the shutdown of operations of many businesses, the loss of jobs and everything, and everybody, it's worried about how they're going to pay the bills, specifically because of the fact that we have become a service economy. And in the past 20, 30 years, a lot of production jobs have been outsourced to China and other places. And in a service economy, when there's no service, a lot of people are really going to be affected if the government doesn't intervene. And instead of doing it like in 1929 or something like that, that they took a long time, or sometimes in 2008, that they really helped the big corporations. Right now, for the first time in history, the government is basically approving programs that not only are going to give a couple of checks for families, but they're actually doing a massive program that it would have an impact on companies that have less than 500 employees, and in key industries like transportation, like medical services that need to get the ventilators and all that. And basically, when it comes to families, what they put together is that if the government, in this case, the Department of the Treasury has an agency called the Internal Revenue Service, which is the one in charge of processing all the tax returns every year, and they collect that information, including your deposit information. They don't use it for collection purposes because it will be illegal for the government to do so, but they use it for good cause, like right now that there is an emergency and they won't have time to start printing all these checks. So if you have filed your taxes in the past couple of years, let's say 17 and 18, even if you have not filed 19 and they have that information, they might try to use that information to get you the monies. But we highly recommend for people to file their 2009 taxes and file electronically if they can, because in case there's a confusion or they change checking accounts for these deposits, the savings, whatever they be using, so the government can have accurate data. So especially those that don't have the same information that they were having and they close that bank account, it will be very beneficial for these families to actually file 2009 taxes, 2019, and to actually put that information there, especially if they were getting a refund. So now they can get these additional monies. How much money? Uh, if you have an individual that is an adult, that person will get to $100, 1,200. If people are married filing jointly, they will get $2,400. And if they have children that are younger than 17, which is in the code, what is considered to be a child, because in the code you have many categories. In this category, you get $500 for kids that are between 1 and 16. Now, would they change the code to extend it all the way to 19, or to even include students that are dependents and go to college until 24? We don't know yet, and that's not being codified. What is being codified based on the IRS code is that for now, for sure, all the kids that are 1 through 16, those families, they will get $500. So if you have a family of 2 adults filing jointly and they have a kid, or a child that is 1 through 16, a teenager, they will be included. Now, if they are 17, 18, or 19, we don't know yet. Right now, it hasn't been codified. That's when it comes to families. Okay,
Excellent.
now.
Well, that's the IRS. But what about if you have a business? What about if I have a small restaurant? What about if I have an office supply company, a dry cleaner?
Okay.
I've got 10, 12 employees. I no longer have a business because nobody's coming to drop off their dry cleaning. What do I have access to, and how do I get that information? Where do I go to? Do I need a CPA to file those forms?
Okay, that's very interesting. The law, it's very ambiguous, because what happens is that they're putting out the forms in SBA.gov. If you go to SBA.gov and you put disaster loan, they get you a lot of information, but it can be very confusing because there are different programs when it comes to the federal level. The state of Florida has, because of hurricane situations in the past, a disaster type of loan that they give, but it's called a bridge loan, that it can go from $0 to $50,000. But it's called a bridge loan, because it is expected that when the federal government comes in, and it's typically a greater loan, you will be able to repay the Florida one. So it covers all the way till December at 0%. Then it triggers to 12%, but it's in the expectation that you would apply for the SBA and you will pay the Florida one. Now, how do you get this one? The state of Florida for this program has much more limited resources than the federal government. So that's something to consider. Now, if you go to the federal level, we're talking about in total, the whole total of programs is, a couple of $1 trillion, 1.5, whatever they're saying, but billions of dollars will be given to small businesses. Now, the first one is called the disaster loan, that is an economic injury. They call it EIDL, economic injury disaster loan. Again, EIDL. And if you go to SBA.gov or you go to Google and you put disaster loan, you'll be able to locate it. That one, right now, they're requesting initially information. You cannot apply to this program if you have more than 500 employees. Now, some industries, they can have more employees if they have the right qualification, because in some industries, sometimes the average are different for the government. But typically, as an average, if you have more than 500 employees, this is not a program for you. It's for people that have less than 500 employees. Now, non-profit organizations that are smaller in size, they can apply too. Sole proprietorship, people that have their own schedule seeing the taxes and they don't have any corporate entity. Some cooperatives and some other type of entities, they can apply. You need to have ready your information about February 1st, 2019, all the way to January 31st, your profit and loss, which means your income, which is your revenue, your gross income, your cost of goods sold, and your administrative expenses, and then gonna use this data to figure out how much they're gonna give you in express loan of $10,000 to initiate. If you're very small, they might give you 1,000, 5,000, whatever. They can give you deposit into your business bank account, which they ask for a routing number in the checking account for the business, and they can give you up to 10,000 first. Then they're gonna ask you to go to your banking institution, or they're going to assign a lending institution and your case number, and they're gonna ask you for personal financial statements. They're gonna ask you initially, they ask you for your social security of everybody that owns more than 20% of the business and personal information like your personal address. They're going to use that information to assign a bank or your local bank to actually get much more than that. Like you need to have financial statements. And that's when it gets really tricky, because in the state of Florida, the only professional that can assemble financial information legally is a certified public accountant.
So listen, it sounds to me like there's a lot of different programs that are out there depending on what kind of business you're in, how big your business is. But like all things that the government does, it sounds somewhat complicated. I was hoping that this would be a lot simpler, but it seems to me that it would behoove somebody who's a little bit confused about this to seek out some help from a professional like yourself, in order to make sure that we've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's and made sure that we put things in order to get the maximum amount that somebody can receive. On top of that, David, as you know, we also have the situation with unemployment benefits. From what I understand, the state of Florida is going through an incredible difficulty because the system is so antiquated that people can't even get in there to apply for unemployment benefits. So I would encourage anybody that's listening to this program to reach out to, whether it's my friend David here or another professional, another CPA professional, to seek some advice and counsel, because this is a lot of money. It can save your business, and it's probably worth reaching out to a professional for that assistance.
Not only that, Raul, but listen to this one so we can complete the whole picture. This one is a loan, and they haven't said anything that they're going to grant it. It's going to be a loan. It starts at 0.5%. It can go up to 4%, so it's a good interest rate, and it can amortize it over 10 years or less. They're going to find out, no more than 10 years. Now, they also came up for another program, with another program that is the Payroll Protection Program, the PPP, which, you know, if you had employees, okay, and you compare the number you had last year for throughout 2019 in W-2 employees, and if you compare that number to the payroll you had between February 15 of last year and June 30th, 2019 of last year, if you're a seasonal employer, and you compare those to January and February of this year, you get the best average that you can. Let's say that if you have, like I have a couple of clients that they have a payroll of $40,000 of W-2 employees, as long as none of the people there that make more than $100,000 are included there. So if you make $200,000, you can look up to $100,000 of commissions, of salary and all that for each person that is included in the payroll. So if you have companies like the ones that I serve that have $40,000 times 2.5, they're gonna use $100,000 that they're gonna basically allow you to apply as a loan. It's called the PPP. And if you get that loan and you use 75% of that amount to cover payroll expenses and the payroll taxes and the payroll services, and the other 25% you use it to pay rent, mortgage, and utilities for the business, they're gonna grant it. But you need to use it in the following 8 weeks. That money has to be used in the next 2 months, which is 8 weeks, and you have to use it to pay 75% payroll and associated expenses, and the other 25% you have to use it for rent, mortgage, or utilities. And if you use it like that, they're gonna give it to you for free. They're gonna grant it. So the way it's gonna work is you need to keep your paperwork all the way until June 30th in order, until the end of June. So that's why you need a CPA firm, because we not only have to do financial statements and we have to watch the payroll, but we need to teach you how to use that money properly. Because if you use it improperly, you're going to have to repay it.
David, from what you're telling me, there's an awful lot of money out there, and it certainly seems wise to basically seek some professional help to make sure not only that you get the maximum amount, but that you do it the right way, so that those loans can in fact perhaps even become grants down the road.
Yes. Exactly. That's
So
what
David,
we're taking a
where
look
can
at.
somebody reach you if they need some more information?
Well, I have several ways of reaching me. Let me tell you. The phone number is 305-707-8007. 305-707-7007, 305-707-8007. The email is max, M-A-X, at maxfinancialteam.com, max at maxfinancialteam.com. If you go to YouTube and you put media hora con Dr. Max, half an hour with Dr. Max in Spanish, you're going to see a bunch of videos that I post on radio shows and TV and everything that I put on there. I have a bunch of information there, media hora con Dr. Max, because as I told you, last year I became a doctor in entrepreneurship from Anaheim University as well. So I'm advertising also my business consulting services. And this came very handy because I posted disaster information. And if you go to LinkedIn, you know that you follow me. It's Max l'Entrepreneur in French, because entrepreneur is a French word. So there are many ways. If you
Max.
put maybe Max Hernandez, you can look me up as well.
Thank you, Max, for this valuable information. And I know you focus on small businesses and entrepreneurs, and that's precisely why people ought to be calling you right now to make sure they make the most of their benefits under this incredible relief program that the President and his administration have put together. Thank you, Max, for being with us this evening, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you. God bless you guys. And America, it's great again. We're going to be fine.
Fine. Thank you, Max. Good evening.
Take care.
Es cierto que la comida de Brian en el restaurante está muy deliciosa.
Ah, deliciosa, mijo.
¡Ay, qué carnita!
¿Qué carnita, papá? ¿Qué carnota?
¡Qué pechuguita!
Pechuguita, eso es un par de pechugotas. Mira.
¡Ay, Dios mío! ¡Qué cosa tan hermosa, hermano!
Lo que pasa es que en Brian Restaurante la calidad de su comida es directamente proporcional a la belleza de sus clientes.
450 East, 4 Avenida.
En Hialeah.
Los mejores precios en vinos y carnes. Y tenemos una gran variedad de carnes exóticas. A las personas que nos visitan en la bodeguita Mian Market les tenemos una sorpresa, un truco de magia. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están?
Hola, ¿cómo está usted?
Bienvenido. Vamos a hacer algo sencillito aquí, mira. Te voy a mostrar que tengo cartas diferentes. Vas a tomar una, la que tú quieras. 7 de trébol, ¿no? Muéstrala y muestra a la cámara, por favor. 7 de trébol, 7. ¿Recuerdas tu carta? ¿Recuerdas tu nombre?
Sí.
Ok, vamos a hacerlo así. Mira, voy a tomar aquí el 7, ahí lo ves, y lo voy a doblar. Pero, como eres mi asistente, vas a ponerlo aquí, pon el dedo ahí. Es mi asistente ahora, ¿ok? Y ahora te voy a poner un poquito más difícil. Voy a tomar para mí el 6. Muéstralo ahí. Ahí lo ven. El 6 de espada, ¿ok? Le voy a poner mi nombre. Le voy a poner aquí Enigma. Mira lo que vamos a hacer. Voy a tomar mi carta, el 6, ¿ok? Y voy a hacer esto. ¿Me prestas una mano, por favor? Mira cómo. Ábrela y muéstrala. Increíble, ha pasado, ¿no? En la bodeguita Mian Market de Miami Lake también hacemos magia con los precios de la carne.
Buenos días.
Soy el mago Enigma y estoy en Gold Travel. Para que veas que esto sí es magia. Mira esto. Mándame para ti, ya cuando tú quieras.
Ya.
Ahí está. Toma. Muestra. decir que es ese.
No. No es eso.
Pon la mano arriba. Y ahora te voy a enseñar otra que sí va a ser la tuya. ¿El 8?
Sí.
Mírala. ¿Es magia o no es magia?
La magia estuvo muy bien, pero los mejores precios los tiene contra. Esconde tus vacaciones.
Yo soy la pitonisa, la que ama y da su magia con una sonrisa. Les quiero contar algo que vi en mi bola de cristal. Cuando usted quiera venir a la ciudad de Miami, tenga cuidado. Hay gente oscura y perversa que le quiere vender cosas negras, cosas malas, cosas vudú. No son originales. Usted viene y compra una cadena, la lava con jabón y no es oro, es cobre. No. Solamente hay una forma, un estilo, una manera de lucir bien. Es una cosa... ¡Ay! La pitonisa te lo garantiza, que el único lugar en Miami donde tú vas a encontrar lo verdadero y lo majestuoso es en Grimal Joyería. Mire, ¡ay, delicioso! Etiqueta y glamour. Me duele la una, me duelen las dos. Y siento que las tengo llenitas de arroz. Me refiero a las manos, malintencionados. Mire esto tan divino, clase, distinción, armonía, etiqueta, glamour. ¡Oh! Esto va conmigo. Esto sí es tener clase. Grimal Joyería. Lo que usted quiere ver en la bella ciudad de Miami, se lo dice la pitonisa.
No importa la edad que tengas, lo importante es verte bien, usar algo que quede con estilo, que esté a la moda y que te guste. Y cuando te mires en un espejo, digas, estoy vestido de ley. 4595 Northwest 7 Street, Miami, Florida 33126. Ropa para hombre y ropa para mujer. Busca tu estilo. Legend, la boutique de la gente dura de Miami.
Bueno, mi gente, nosotras las colombianas sí que sabemos qué es lo que es un buen café. El café Cachita, lo que comparta con toda su familia.
¡Ay, sí! ¡Ay! Café Cachita, el mejor café para compartir.
Y aquí estamos compartiendo Dame un Like, solo por @NTVUSA.
Con una vista basta.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening on our first segment here of Más con Más. I really appreciate you taking time out from your busy schedules to listen to us, to listen to the folks that we had an opportunity to speak with this evening. I hope you found them useful and contributing to your finances in a positive way. Hope to do more of those in the future. Have just a few parting words for you as we close out the evening here. Number one, these are times unlike we've never seen before. As we go through this together, try to maintain your wits about you. Be kind to everybody around you. Say thank you, say please. Everybody's going through stressful times. You may think you're the only one going through those times, but I can assure you there's people that are going through a lot more stressful times than we are. Those folks that are on the front lines, those doctors, those nurses, trying to save lives every night. The police officers that are out protecting our neighborhoods. The fire departments that are responding to the people that are having shortness of breath and need to be transported to the ambulance. We're trying to get involved in saving these lives because we don't want to overwhelm our hospital system. That's why it's important that we also obey the rules that our government administrators and leaders have put out for us, not to control us, but basically to try and save as many lives as possible and try and make sure that all of us stay healthy and safe. At the same time, I caution you to, let's pay attention to the fact that we still live in a free country. It's times like this when government takes control that down the road can sometimes come back and haunt us later on. So let's make sure we also protect our individual rights in this country, our ability to speak freely, our ability to assemble once these regulations about social distancing are over, our ability to be able to assemble again in families and groups and churches and speak and communicate with each other, our ability to basically lead our lives. We live in a great country. We are fortunate to have as many resources as we have in America that will get us through this difficult time. Cooperate with the authorities, cooperate with your friends and neighbors, listen to the advice that's out there. It's good advice. I have been incredibly impressed by Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, Dr. Anthony Fauci from the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Birx, who's basically on the Corona Task Force and was our HIV/AIDS ambassador to the rest of the world. These are professionals who have been at this for 30, 40 years. They know exactly how to deal with pandemics. They know exactly how we can get out of this mess that we've gotten ourselves into through no fault of our own. It's a reminder to the world that God is still in charge, Mother Nature is still in charge, and no matter what we think we might be able to do to control our environment, we can't always do everything to do precisely that, to control every single minute of our lives. So take care of yourselves. I hope you found this program useful. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and hopefully with a lot more interesting guests and more interesting information that you find useful in your daily lives. Thank you for being with me this evening.